So, with the news that Kimi Antonelli, Oliver Bearman, and Jack Doohan are joining the grid next year, plus the rumors with Liam Lawson, Gabriel Bortoleto, and Isaac Hadjar maybe getting a chance too sounds good, what if I were to tell you this is actually really, really bad for F2? And how, you may ask? Well, all of these drivers, with maybe the exception of Hadjar and Bortoleto as the season is not over yet, are not F2 champions, but yet they are the ones hailed as the next big thing. It seems a little strange that the F2 champions like Pourchaire or Drugovich have little to no hope in getting into F1, but yet drivers who finish at highest, third in the standings, are hailed to be the next coming of Christ, right? Well, there is something common in the 6 drivers I mentioned, and that is, they have loads of private testing with their driver academies compared to drivers like Drugovich who had no academy, driver like Pourchaire who may as well have no academy since the Sauber Academy has an equal success rate as Ferrari Championship since 2010, and even De Vries who did make it to F1 but had no academy when he won F2 in 2019. So, are teams waking up to the tomfoolery in F2 and giving their drivers private tests instead of letting them truly mature in F2? Or is this pure coincidence since drivers like Piastri, who was F2 champion, made it to F1? Well, before we discuss any further, I'd like to give a quick shout out to all members of the flock, and if you haven't joined the flock yet, I would appreciate it so we could fight against the FOM devils. So, enough yapping, and let us discuss the possibility of F1 teams realizing F2 is a joke now. But wait, didn't you already make an F2 video? Well, yeah, but to be honest, I'm not happy with that video and I wanted to update it so it sounds a little bit better. But in case you haven't seen that video, here's a rundown on the problems with F2. There are 2 core issues with the series in my opinion, and the first one is the problem of not what you can do in the sport, but who you know in the sport. Let me explain. There are many drivers in F2 who quite literally buy their seat with sponsorship money and keep away true talent that should be there, and we quite literally saw this last week when it was announced that to fill in Taylor Barnard's seat at AIX Racing, since Barnard went to FE, would be a driver by the name of Niels Coughlan. And who is he, you may ask? Oh, well, he is just one of the worst drivers in Junior Series who finishes last in every single outing. But he got the seat due to the sweet moolah he brings with him, and it's really infuriating because someone with a boatload of more talent could have gotten that seat over him. But what are you gonna do about it? Money talks in F2, not talent. Anyways, the other core issue is how manipulated the series can be in terms of car performance, and this is extremely bad as well, since this hardly makes F2 a spec series. If F2 is a spec series, then I am Bill Gates, because it doesn't matter how much F2 insists on being equal, it is not equal thanks to money talking again, which can get you the best car setups and the team centered around on only you, and of course the Mechachrome lottery, where you either get an extremely bad engine that is down on 200 horsepower on everyone else and it blows up a lot, or you get an engine that is up 200 horsepower on everyone else and never blows up. These issues hold F2 back so much because theoretically, a spec series where the best junior drivers from around the world get to race each other for a high chance of getting into F1 sounds great, but in practice, you get times where the best drivers, let's take Victor Martins for example, are struggling with shitboxes that explode that they're given frequently, while shit drivers like Cordeel are given the best car on the grid. And while yeah, Victor Martins is ahead of Cordeel in the standings, it doesn't change the fact that in a perfect world, Martins wouldn't be 9th, he would be in the top 3 at least. So, with this grim reality, F1 teams are seemingly becoming aware of the issues in F2, so how are they working around this so their drivers can properly develop? Well, it's simple. Smother them in private testing. When a driver academy goes all in on a talent, it seems that there's this new belief of, why wait when I can have it now? So they make them take F2 as a bit of a beginner course, and then the real course is private testing, where they run a variety of race programs until they finish. Obviously, this is not the absolute truth, since we don't know what is really going on behind the scenes. However, it does seem to be the new wave since Kimi Antonelli has been running tests out the wazoo, same thing with Bearman and Doohan for a couple years, and Liam especially. But obviously, there are exceptions. And by exceptions, I mean just one, since Piastri is just really talented, and while Mick may be as well, he was prone to crashing a lot, which may have masked some pace, so we ultimately don't know. But speaking of Oscar, I believe he is the domino to have caused F1 teams into this direction, because after winning Formula Renault, F3, and then F2 back to back to back, it seemed that F1 in 2022 would be a no-brainer. However, he wasn't on the grid, and instead, he ran tests for Alpine and McLaren during that season. And then, in 2023, when he finally joined, he had one of the best rookie seasons ever. So, I imagine the other teams, more specifically Mercedes and Red Bull, saw this, and maybe decided it was best to run private tests with their talents instead of trusting F2 to be the bar for talent. Again, this is speculation, so don't take anything I'm saying serious. However, I have to think something similar had to have happened for this way of thinking, but also interestingly enough, this isn't unheard of in the sport, since Lewis Hamilton had mountains of private testing done with McLaren before his rookie season, and look how that ended up. So, with F1 having more lenient rules against private testing, perhaps the teams are now going all in on creating their own Lewis Hamilton. However, there are some potential problems with this. The first being, if this is bad for the driver's development. Let me explain. If you put a really fast driver in an F1 car and they show immediate promise and pace, then great, you have a new talent to back. However, what if you're running too many tests and are told that you will become the next big F1 driver, that it leads to the driver becoming too comfortable and thus losing some ability to race wheel to wheel effectively, or lose the ability to manage tires during a race? Well, I know this is really stupid to say, however, we need to consider all possibilities, even if it does seem unlikely, since it could be a valid worry in the future, especially if, let's say, Antonelli and Doohan are bad wheel-to-wheel racers in F1, then maybe they could have benefited from taking F2 100% serious. But this is not to say Antonelli and Doohan are bad wheel-to-wheel racers, far from it. Matter of fact, with Antonelli specifically, he's a fantastic racer. However, again, let's say, hypothetically, a driver turns out like this. Then what? Do we have another Pastor Maldonado, except it's going to be half the entire grid? Well then, obviously we need F2 to become a better series, so that it could be a proving ground again, instead of whatever it is currently. And the other problem with the academies disregarding F2 is how it is really bad for the F2 sport itself. Again, I already made a video about F2 losing its credibility, but some of you guys in the comments made great points, and that is how F1 driver academies are killing the sport, and they are not wrong, since there are many great talents in F2 like Drugovich, Aaron, and even De Vries, who never got the support they needed to become the absolute best, and are now ultimately seen as what-if drivers, since you get the feeling they could have been so much more than just a third driver or forced to race in slower categories than F1. It ultimately makes F2 be seen as a series of drivers with academies racing each other for a high chance at F1, and oh, there's also unaffiliated drivers here too, but no one cares about them. It really is sad, since while series like IndyCar or WEC are not bad, far from it, F1 is the pinnacle for most, the series drivers dream of, and it's always sad to see drivers clearly have to get over their dreams of F1 glory not being achieved. But oh well, real motorsports enthusiasts are just happy to see these drivers do well in other series like WEC, especially with drivers like Isla or De Vries. Anyways, now that we see the issues with F1 private testings in F2, is there a solution to fix this, or are we about to enter in a new era of junior drivers? Well, before we go any further, I want to state that if controlled, this new era of junior drivers is about to be some of the best drivers we have ever seen, since if F2's problems are fixed, and if private testing doesn't become the sole development for these drivers, not only are we going to see some very fast drivers, but also some really good wheel-to-wheel racers. However, let me explain how to fix these issues. The main problem is, of course, F2, and the solution, to be straight up with you guys, is very unrealistic. But the solution is truly just to make F2 a spec series again. Money needs to stop influencing the market there, so that means drivers like Cullen will never have a chance at F2, and drivers like Cordeal will finally be gone from the sport, which hopefully means the grid will be filled by only worthy talent that is perhaps capable of F1. Also, Get rid of Mechachrome. Enough is truly enough, and the engines need to start being equal for everyone so no one has an advantage or disadvantage over others. And as for the F1 test, maybe dial them down a little bit, since there will still be drivers on the F2 grid without an academy, and there still has to be some chance for them instead of academy drivers running infinite tests that influence their F1 chances. Are these realistic changes that can happen? Well, maybe, but probably not, since again, money talks in motorsports, not talent, but at least the academies can provide some aid against that. So, there is my opinion on if F1 teams see that F2 is a joke now. Of course, this video is purely speculation, and it's more of a theory than a truth on what I believe is going on regarding the lack of F2 champions on the grid, and the prioritization of other junior drivers which can maybe allow them to not even become F2 champion at all. Man, real ones remember F2 2018 and that amazing season. Truly, it was one of the last times F2 was a level playing field, since we saw many drivers like Russell, Norris, Albon, De Vries, Markelov always be in contention, and of course many others. And yeah, those were truly the good old times. But I do think the new junior drivers built on F1 private testing over F2 will do spectacular, so let us see what happens. Anyways, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, since that would greatly help me in making better content, and let me know in the comments what you think of F2, and as always, have an amazing day.
Good weather for the duck.